Welcome to DebTalk with your host, Deb Darling. On this pod, I'll be asking the hard questions that life throws our way. What some are scared to talk about and others wish they did. Sex, cultura, kids being assholes, overeating, butt sex, shitty jobs, and so much more. I'm on this journey of getting to know myself and others. So come join me! Welcome to DebTalk with your girl, Deb Darling. I am here with my very special guest, Miss Tasha.
Hey.
Welcome. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Please tell the people where they can find you, who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
So, my name is Tasha G. I actually have my own podcast, which is Talks with Tasha, and you can find me pretty much on all social media platforms. I'm on Instagram primarily, which is Talks with Tasha Podcast. Of course, at Talks with Tasha Podcast. I'm on Twitter, Tasha Talks. And you can find me on Facebook as well. There's a Talks with Tasha podcast Facebook page. So you can find me there. And of course, send me a message if there's something that you want to talk about, or just, go and like all of my little pictures and stuff.
Yes.
But as far as my podcast is pretty much similar to yours, very free flowing. I like to have conversations. I like to know what people are doing. And currently we're talking about current events, the things that are going on right now with like coronavirus, and obviously, a lot of the social issues regarding Black Lives Matter and police brutality and racial equality. So those are the things that we're dealing with right now. But outside of my podcast, I am a professional working mom of 3 kids. 2 of them are at home. My oldest, my son, is a college student in DC, and then I have my 2 daughters who are high school students. Well, I mean high school because schools aren't really open anymore. So, but that, it's really simple. I'm a simple person, but I have a lot going on. So that's me in a nutshell.
Nice. I was listening to your podcast earlier today, the most recent one, and it was so funny. I didn't finish it because like I said, I was in the park and everything. So I was just like, oh, I have to pay attention, but I also want to hear this because this is so funny. And you are so great. I was just like, this is amazing. I'm going to listen to every single episode as soon as I get a chance. Absolutely. Yeah, so welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm so happy that you agreed to be on.
Oh, definitely. As soon as we talked about like the topics, I was like, these are things that need to be discussed, and it's funny because other people, like I've had sidebar conversations with people about this topic quite frequently, actually, like within, I would say probably like the last 6 months, this topic constantly is coming up. And so whenever you said, hey, like, can we talk about this? I was like, yes, definitely. Like there was no hesitation at all, because I feel like a lot of people are nervous about talking about it, but it needs to be talked about. It needs to, so like I said, it was easy for me to say, okay, yeah, sure, let's do it.
So. Thank you. It takes a lot. Like you just said, it takes a lot because people are scared of what their family's going to say, and what, like, you are now putting your family on the front line. And like putting your business out there. And I always tell my mom, because she's always like, you always put your business out there. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm an open book. And if you start hiding things, when things come like out, because everything that happens in the dark comes to light at some point or another. So that being said, I am not ashamed of anything that's ever happened to me. I've been through a lot of shit, but I've overcome all of it. I'm not a victim. I am a survivor. So, yeah, like that is, so that's why this topic definitely hits really close to home. So for somebody to actually be open to talking about it, it's like, word, I'm not the only person that has had to deal with something like this.
Not at all. And I'm pretty sure we're kindred spirits, because I'm the same way. Like, people wonder how I run around and I'm so free and happy, and like I genuinely love life. It's because I don't have those boulders of secrets. You know, there's nothing, and I tell people this all the time. It's really hard to be attacked by someone when you have everything out in the open. Nobody can come at me with anything, because I'm like, yeah, people already know. Like, you know, yes, you know, okay, so I've been married 3 times. Yes, everyone knows, like, it doesn't matter. You know, no, I don't come from a rich family. Everyone knows it doesn't matter. Like, nothing about me is a secret, because I feel like whenever you start keeping secrets, those things start to weigh down on your peace and your happiness. So, I mean, granted, I'm not just walking around down the street, like, pointing to everyone and saying, hey, guess what? You know, I've been married 3 times, right? Or, hey, guess what? You know, I lost my first kid, right? Like, I don't do all of that stuff, but I don't shy away from having these conversations, not only because it allows me to walk around freely, but I feel like it also encourages somebody else to, you know, to have that level of freedom. And so a story regarding me and my 3 marriages, when we talk about freedom aspect, right? I remember I was working on a contract a few years ago, and there was one of the ladies who was a partner on the team, and she was an older lady. And I remember we were sitting around, you know, kind of just having office chit chat. And one of the younger ladies, she was talking about, you know, basically arguing with me about my emotional attachment to sex, and me referencing the fact that, like, I'm not just going to sleep with anybody because I am emotionally tied to sex. And she's like, no, I'm not. And I was like, well, no, that's just not me. She was like, well, I'm not really going to take advice from you. You've been married 3 times. And I was like, yeah, well, at least I got 3 guys to want to marry me.
Right.
And so the other lady, who's a little bit older, she, like, her face was just like, she let me know she was embarrassed for me. And so whenever we were talking, I was talking to the older lady afterwards, and she was like, oh my gosh, Natasha, I'm so sorry. I was embarrassed for you. And I was like, no, why? And she was like, well, you know, a lot of people don't know, but I've been married 3 times as well. I was like, so? She said, the fact that, like, you just don't care. I was like, if I deny it, does it change that it happened? No, it happened. I was like, so you're walking around not wanting people to judge you. Meanwhile, you're judging yourself every day, all day. I was like, baby girl, there is freedom in this. I'm not saying you have to broadcast it to everybody, but you don't have to be ashamed of the fact that you've been married 3 times. You tried 3 times. And I mean, she's been married to her last husband for quite some time, but it's just the fact of, like, let's not have these secrets. And she tells me all the time, she's like, you know, people always talk about, you know, how older people have wisdom and everything. She was like, the fact that you displayed that level of wisdom and that level of surety in yourself, she's like, I learned so much from you that day. She's like, and from then on, I've never been ashamed to tell people that I've been married 3 times. She said, because it is what it is. It doesn't change who I am today. I said, exactly. I said, odds are, the fact that you had those other 2 failed marriages has allowed you to have this great marriage for the 3rd time. And so I say all of that to say, like, if people are listening, like, I hope they realize that this isn't just about us kind of putting our business out on Front Street. It's just to be free, like, to not let those things weigh on you, and just
living in your truth.
Exactly. Let's have these discussions, and let's grow from it. Let's be better, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm always talking about it.
Great. And that being said, let's slide right on into the first segment, which is the weekly inquiry. And this week, the weekly inquiry is, what was life like overcoming sexual assault within your family?
So for me, and the reason I say for me is because obviously everybody's story is different. My story actually involves my uncle, and growing up, it was almost like all of the adults around knew what was happening, but nobody was stopping it. And I feel like the reason they weren't stopping it was because my uncle is mentally handicapped. His education level was probably maybe at kindergarten, maybe somewhere between kindergarten and 1st grade. But myself and all of my little cousins, we would always hang out because he stayed with my grandmother until they passed away. And then my mom actually got custody of him. But he, because of the fact that he had this stunted mentality, he was always hanging out with the kids. And I don't know when it started. It's almost like I can't even really think back to a time in my life where it wasn't happening. But what was happening originally was he was masturbating in front of us, in front of like a select, like, and I think it probably happened to all of us at some point in time or another. But the adults, like his siblings, my mom and his sisters and his brother, they would kind of laugh it off. You know, they would joke about, you know, there being dried up socks, you know, behind, you know, the bed, or, you know, him staying up late or whatever. And they would totally disregard it. And as I got older, like I realized like, this is not right. This is not right, because as we got older, he also started to get a little bit more aggressive in regards to like touching us while he was masturbating. Yeah. And I always tell people that I think I was just built differently, because I knew it was wrong. And as I got older, I tried to make sure that I kept myself somewhat engaged with him, because I mean, he was my uncle. I loved him. And it was almost like there were two sides to him. There was a side of him that we got to play with and have fun with. And, you know, he was a kid just like us, but he's big like an adult. So he's super strong and he can do all of these things. But then there was also this sick and twisted side. And that was a part that we had to endure, you know, the touching and the visual stuff. And so once I got older, and I was grown, and I had my own kids, I was very mindful to make sure that whenever I would go back home to Louisiana, they were never left alone with him. They were never, there was never a point in time where I would leave a house and he was there and my kids would be there as well, because I did not feel comfortable in leaving them, because these were the same adults who allowed it to happen to me. These were my aunts and my uncles and my mom, who never checked it, and they allowed these things to happen. But then I also started thinking, and I guess this is also probably part of how I was able to come to grips with, I don't want to say being okay with it, but being able to not allow it to negatively impact me. Because of the fact that he had a stunted mentality, all I kept thinking about was, how did he know about this? How did he know to do these things? Because this is a man who could barely get through his ABCs. So how did he know these things? And then I started thinking about my aunts and her boyfriends that would come around, and, you know, how they would joke around with him and everything. And all I was saying to myself was, somebody probably showed him.
Someone had to have been doing it to him for him to learn to do it to someone else.
Exactly. And so whenever I thought about that, I almost came to a place of peace about it. Like I wasn't, and I don't think I was ever mad about it, because I separated my uncle from this stuff, this dark space. And as I started to think about that, I was like, he wasn't doing this to me because he is a vile person. He was doing it because it felt good, and because that's what someone had to have shown him, or had to have done it to him. And so then my heart kind of got sad, because I was like, not only did they not protect me, they didn't protect him. Nobody protected him. So, but that didn't change the fact that he has this in him. He has this in him, and I don't know what that looks like to this day, but I do recall I had gone home to Louisiana, and I finally had a conversation about it, because like I said, my mom has custody of him, and I told, I have her grandkids. So whenever I went home, I told her, I said, if I ever find out that the kids were here and you were not here with them, you will never see your kids again. I said, because let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. He has done this to us since we were kids. Y'all laughed about it, and it's not funny to me. I will kill somebody behind my kids. And this is me talking to my mother. And I said, I'm telling you this. I said, and you can tell it to anybody else, because I would always say this, I got lucky. I made it out. I'm still a whole person. I'm still healthy, and I still have a healthy outlook on sex and sexuality. But I'm not taking that gamble with my kids. So if it comes down to it, I'm going to end up hurting somebody, but at minimum, y'all will lose custody of him and somebody's going to jail. Mm-hmm. And so it was almost like, you know, I feel like they were upset about me actually saying it out loud. But these were the things that us as the cousins, we all whispered behind closed doors anyway. Mm-hmm. We talked about, and I didn't want those whispers to be the same things that allowed my children to have to go through what I went through. So I didn't whisper about it. I said it out loud that this will not happen and this is not okay, because if you can't address it and get him to stop it, which they probably wouldn't be able to, that's not a chance that I was going to take with my kids.
It's not a dice you're about to roll.
No, at all. That's there's things that I will gamble with, but the sanity and the purity of my children, it was not part of the deal. So now, you know, here I am, you know, with, like I said, you know, 16, 17, and a 22-year-old, and I've had the conversations with them. You know, they are.
That was going to be my next question. Have you spoken to them about anything like that? Have they?
Yes, I have spoken to them about the instances, because I mean, like many people who have dealt with sexual assault, the unfortunate part is it's rarely ever just the one time. Mm-hmm. You know, like I dealt with it with my family member, as well as me dealing with it externally, you know, from one of my brother's friends, as well as, you know, once I was in the military. So I've always, because of the fact that I was in those sort of positions, I always wanted to make sure that as my children got older, as their understanding grew, the stories would get more and more detailed, to where I could give them a little bit more information so they could understand what to look for, how to speak up, you know, what is okay, what is not okay. And so I've had those conversations with them about all the situations that have happened to me that I've had to endure. And we've always had a very open dialogue about it. And whenever I told them about their uncle, of course they were hurt, you know, because they know him as our mom's uncle, you know, and they know that he's mentally challenged. So again, that's that same part, like they see him as their uncle, and there's that part that's, you know, you love him, but then there's also that part that they know is lurking in the wings, just kind of waiting. And that's not the part that they want to deal with. But I need to make sure that they were aware of that part of him.
Mm-hmm, good.
Because I feel like I wouldn't be doing them justice as a mom if I didn't allow them to know.
It's definitely a disservice to not tell them as people that are going to be as little adults or young adults that are going to be around them. You have to inform them, because anything can happen at any time. It could happen even when the people that your mom is in the house. Like, it could be in passing. You don't know how much worse it's gotten. You don't know anything. So that is something that I'm so glad that. So they were very receptive, and like
they were sad. I mean, they were very sad whenever I told them the truth about it all. You know, they were sad because of me having, you know, I'm their mom. You know, in their mind, it's like, you know, for something bad to happen to our mom. So of course they were hurt about that. And then it was confusing, you know, like, wait, that's not the guy that we know. And I was, you know, and I told him, I said, because I was very strategic in making sure that y'all only got to know the good parts of him, the part of him that I feel like, you know, is your uncle. The other side, that stuff, you know, I didn't want y'all didn't need to know about it. I said, but like, this is what he is, and this is how things have been, you know. So you know, those conversations needed to happen, and it, you know, yes, they're hard conversations, but those are conversations that needed to happen.
Good. I mean, that is so true. When was it the first time that you had the conversation? And with your son being 22, him being a boy, how did you have that discussion with him, and at what age?
So I remember, this was back in 2007. So he was 11 at the time. I think it was like 11 or 12. And I just talked to him, and I told him, I was like, hey, look, you know, because he was actually going to be going over to my mom's to spend the night. And I told him, I was like, hey, look, I said, you know, what I've told you about people touching your body, right? People doing anything with their body around you. He's like, yes, ma'am. I said, this applies to family as well. And he just kind of looked at me, and I told him, I was like, hey, look, your uncle, he's had problems. He's had problems before. So if he comes anywhere near you, like, make sure that whenever you go to bed, you are with your grandmother. Do not come out if you have to go to the bathroom. Make sure that she's with you. And he didn't seem like he was afraid. He looked like he was a little bit confused. But I told him, you can still go and have fun, but just make sure that whenever, when Nana walks away, so do you. And, and that was it. And like I said, I think because it's been such a fluid conversation and a very open, an open platform, I guess, that for us to have those conversations about any of this sort of stuff, they've never shied away from talking to me or asking me questions. And, yes, I've gone into detail with them about what those experiences look like. And, parents don't even want to talk to their kids about masturbation for them as an individual, like, let alone you want to talk to them about an adult masturbating in front of them, using their body as a visual aid. Like, you don't want to have that conversation, but I needed to have that conversation because I needed for them to understand when I say this, and I'm using air quotes, when I say this is wrong, I need them to know what this looks like. Because people always say, oh, well, if someone touches you inappropriately, okay, well, what does inappropriately look like?
Right.
You need to have that conversation with them because, okay, if they put their hand on their shoulder, if it makes them uncomfortable, you tell them, hey, that's something that makes you uncomfortable. But is that really them touching you inappropriately? Like you need to be very clear, very specific. And that's another thing, like, make sure these kids know what their private parts actually are. Like, let's stop giving them nicknames. Call a vagina a vagina. Call your boobs, your titties, or whatever. Call them your breasts. Like, your balls, your penis. Like, have an actual conversation. And also, for a lot of these kids, they talk about everything from the front, but it's like, no, make sure that they understand what their buttocks, and what their anus is, because it, when it comes to sexual deviance and when it comes to pedophilia, whatever, nothing is off limits. Nothing is off limits, and these kids need to know what you're talking about. Be specific about it, and be okay letting them know that it is not okay, no matter who it is, even if it's a family member. And you have to back your kids up. It's not a joke. It's not, something to brush under the rug, because eventually you have somebody like me who's gonna, I wouldn't say that my family is embarrassed about it, but I'm sure they're not proud of it, because now you kind of get the badge of, we allowed this to happen. We allowed it to happen.
When you brought it to their attention, was this in a group setting, or was it just to your mom by herself, or how did that happen? And how long did you wait after?
So when you say how long did I wait after?
Like, after you brought it to your mom's attention, how much later in life was it?
Oh gosh, that was, again, this was in 2007, and I was, I left home in 95.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so I was never worried about it before, because my kids were never around. I was in the military. I was moving around all the time. And so even whenever I would go home to Louisiana, my kids were with me. They were always in my presence. I was never leaving them to sleep over at anybody's house. I was always there. So the conversation didn't need to happen. But then whenever I had gone home, I actually moved back to Louisiana for like a year and a half, just to decide what I actually wanted to do after I got out of the military. But so the fact that I was home, and of course, kids, I know I slept over at my grandmother's house. And that's what kids do. They want to sleep over at Nana's, grandma's, whatever. So I didn't want to steal that from her, but I also didn't want to take, that chance with my kids. So I need to make sure that we were on the same sheet of music. And I made it abundantly clear, what was this? So what, 32 years later? I made it abundantly clear 32 years later that under no circumstances are my children allowed to be left alone with him in the house. And under no certain terms am I going to stop at making sure that if he does anything wrong to them, my children will be covered, and somebody's going to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to pay for whatever is done to them. So, and she, you know, like I said, at first it was kind of like, oh God, you know, the fact that I'm vocalizing, and it's not just the cousins in the background, but I'm vocalizing it to her, and I'm not talking to her as my mom. You know, this is, you can't, like, this is your mom. Normally it's like, okay, mom, you know, you kind of bow out because it's your mom, so you let it happen. But this wasn't something I was gonna give on. This wasn't something that was negotiable. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm expecting, and if you go against that, then we will have problems.
We'll have some problems for sure.
Yeah, so she, like I said, you could see she was kind of shocked about it, but she was receptive to it. She understood where I was coming from.
Did she ever give an apology?
Yeah, she did because and I want to say it was probably like the next day or maybe like a couple of days later. She was like, you know, I guess we really didn't think about like what all was actually happening, you know, and again, I just think I'm different because I looked at my mom and I told her, I was like, you know, as a parent, we always feel like we're doing what's best. Mm-hmm. You know, I really don't think most parents go out with the intention of, oh, fuck it, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to do whatever. Who cares what happens to this kid? Who cares how this stuff impacts this child? I don't think parents go into the deal like that. They actually try to make sure that they do right by their children. They make good decisions. And I don't think they realize like how impactful what they were brushing under the rug was to all of us, because it wasn't just me. It was not just me. It was all, like I said, I don't know if it was everybody, but I know it was plenty of us. It was like at one point in time, it was like 8 of us cousins that would always be there. And I know of the 8, at least 4 of us, like of the 8, I know at least 4 of us were exposed to him.
Was it boys and girls?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So as far as like touching and everything, like once he got to the level of touching, and it was almost so like he would hold us like close to him. When I say us, because it was just me, but like he would grab onto us, to me, and he would start fondling my breast, and while he's masturbating, and I'm just kind of like, you know, my body is just frozen because like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. This is my uncle, but like, I don't think this is right. Mm-hmm. So, but I know whenever it was just the visuals, it was boys and girls. So,
did you say enough is enough? You're not doing this shit no more?
I would say it was I remember, I don't remember what age I was, but I remember I was on my period. How fitting, right? Like I'm not doing this shit.
Right. But, all I could think is like, you know, when you're PMSing, it is just like you literally, it could be.
Yeah, like, I'm done. Like, okay, enough. But no, I remember because, like I said, he would hold us close, and he would. It's almost like he would get so excited and so aroused, he would start to squeeze you like really, really hard, and I was already cramping. And so I was like, stop. Like, I remember telling him, stop it. And so I like pushed back really, really hard. And it was like, at that moment, I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to do this. And so it was almost like this feeling that I could get that I knew it was getting ready to happen. So I started to avoid those spaces, of, you know, those moments where I felt like, oh, this is about to happen. But I remember very distinctly the last time it happened. So I want to say it was probably like about like 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. So, and like I said, I don't remember any time before that where it wasn't a thing. So, but I remember, you know, like telling him to get off of me, and I pushed him, and he was like shocked. He was like, his face, he just kind of was completely shocked at what happened. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of stood there for a minute. And then I went on and I walked off. Like I put my, because he had my shirt up, but I put my shirt down and then I walked off. That was it. That's how it ended.
He never tried again?
I don't know if he, I don't know if I can say that he didn't try again versus I didn't allow myself to be put into those certain situations. It was like I said, it was almost like you could feel certain things that would happen, like so because he was with my grandparents and they were tenant farmers. So whenever we would like go out to the barn to get feed and everything to go and feed all of the animals, that was one of the times. Like that was a dead giveaway. Whenever my grandparents would leave the house, like if he would go into the bathroom and he would ask for help for something, that was it. So like I knew all of the times when it would kind of trigger it. So I was like, if he needs help, don't go help him, you know, or if he's going to go, and that was another thing, like my oldest brother, I don't think my oldest brother was involved in it at all. So that was another thing. Like if he wanted me to help him, like go and put the horses up or whatever, I would go and get my older brother and have him come. And so it was almost like those opportunities never happened anymore. So, but yeah, it stopped. And so like I said, this was probably, I was like 12 or 13. And then I left home when I was 17 to go into the military. So I had like, you know, a good 4 or 5 years of peace. But then, you know, was he doing it to my younger cousins? Probably. Yeah. I don't know.
Did it feel like you should have spoken up a little earlier? Like, what was it that was holding you back from telling your mom, like, don't get custody of him, don't, like, he's doing this?
Well, I never even questioned my mom taking custody of him because I knew, as far as his well-being and his care, my mom, of the siblings who were left, my mom would be the best one to take care of him. I never challenged that. I never questioned it. Because like I said, I didn't even live home. I wasn't even living at home. I was in the military. I was gone. So I wasn't even worried about it. But so I never said anything about it. But I did, it actually started to bother me a little bit once I left home, because I was like, he's probably doing this to my younger cousins. He's probably still doing it. And everybody else is probably just, you know, sitting around, you know, brushing it off like no big deal. And then I start to think about, you know, the mental space that so many of my other cousins are in, my sister. And I wonder how much of a role the things that he did played into it. Because I know they went through, you know, one of the other things that you and I kind of were talking about was colorism. And that was an issue between my sister and I. So like, add that into, you know, the sexual assault. How different would she be if I had at least been able to take away a piece, like a part of that, by saying something? Yeah. I was the younger sister. I'm the baby. But I was always the more vocal one. I was always the more aggressive and assertive one. So I thought about it a lot. Like, and this is at the age of 17, whenever I left from home. And then once I had my son, I thought about it even more. But it wasn't until I had to actually, you know, consider them being there on a consistent basis without me that I really started to, you know, say, when I started to say, but I said, I have to say something about this, because I don't want it to be a speculation. I need it to be known that this is what has happened. I know that y'all are aware that this has happened, and the way that y'all have handled it in the past is not acceptable to me. And so that's why I spoke out about it. But prior to that, I just never said anything about it, because I felt like, what's it really going to change? Nobody's going to do anything.
For what now? Like, I'm already out. They don't care. They're not. But do you think that your mom has done stuff, because now that she, like, you spoke to her and you told her that she tried to make even the slightest of difference after?
Are you talking about to change, like, how she
for the future, for your future,
how she handles?
And
yeah. So I think she is more aware of, you know, leaving children in his presence. And I don't know if, I mean, hell, he's older now. I don't even know if those parts work anymore. But I don't even know. And I know it's really, really sad to say, but I'm just kind of like, as long as it's not mine. Like, I've said what I had to say. I can't sit here and try and police everybody's children. So, yeah, I guess
you did your part, which is to speak up and say something. So
yeah, because honestly, if I were to, like, how would that even work? Do I say, hey, look, mom, you need to what? Like, what do you need to do? Like, what do you need to commit him? This man is in his 60s, and this is all he's known, and now you're gonna throw him into some sort of facility? Like, what does that do? Do I say, oh, hey, no, don't leave him around anybody's kids, because I'm not down there. So if they did, would I even know? I just feel like it's not even the battle that I need to fight. I feel like I fought. I made them aware. I made sure to protect my children. And as horrible as it might sound to some, I did my part. There's not much more that I can do, because what do I go to the police station and say, oh, hey, yeah, whenever I was, 12 years old, I'm 42 years old. That was 30 years ago. Do I go into the police station about something that happened 30 years ago and there's no record of it? There's no record of it. There's no, what is my family going to all of a sudden say, oh yeah, we did kick back and, made jokes about it, but we didn't think it was that serious. Like, nothing is going to happen to it. So I'm actually hoping the fact that we talk about it now, people are more likely to address it when it's happening. And the adults who are around address it when it's happening, and don't leave these kids standing out on their own feeling like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. This is just what it is. Like, this is what I have to accept. I've had countless conversations with so many people talking to me about the uncle or the family friend who, sleeps in the guest room, and the things that they did to them, and the family knew about it and nobody said anything. Like, that culture has to change. And, I don't know about white families because I'm not white. I don't know about Hispanic families because I'm not Hispanic. But what I do know is all of the people that told me these stories, all of them were Black. All of them. And it's, I don't know if it's just this culture that we have of not involving the authorities, not putting them in our business because we get like the harshest of punishments. I don't know, but at the end of the day, there's kids on the other side of this. There's very impressionable children whose psychological well-being you're molding by being passive, by being dismissive. So I would hope people pay attention and say, like, okay, this is what was done the generation before me. However, this is my generation. I have the opportunity to do it the right way, do it a better way.
Absolutely. I'm with you with that. So now you're about to meet a Hispanic that has gone through it. And so for me, in the Hispanic culture, they are very much kisses and hugs. And you have to say hello to everybody in the room and give kisses and hugs. And I have an uncle, and he would like grab me really tight, and then he would kiss me whenever it was time to say hello. Or he would like take advantage of like if people weren't looking and like hug me and like grab my butt, or do like make sure he was kissing me on my lips, and like it was just really gross. I didn't say anything because this happened for a really long time. I didn't say anything until last year. And and it was because we were celebrating something, and we ended up drinking. All the family, everybody had came. He has 5 daughters. All of them are my cousins. And no, not 5. 4 daughters. Oh, I'm sorry. He has 4 daughters with my aunt, and then he has like 2 or 3 other daughters with another woman.
Okay.
Wow. He has daughters, a lot of daughters, and then a son. And we were all there. We had gone out to smoke, and like I remember, I'm skipping so much, but I remember just being outside, and I'm looking at him, and I was like, so do you remember all the things you used to do? Because at this point I'm a little tipsy. And I was like, do you remember? Then he was just like, I don't know. No, he was like, why don't you say hi to me anymore? And I was like, do you not remember all the things you used to do to me? I was like, what do you think? I forgot? Those things just poof disappeared. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was getting so mad. And then I'm tipsy. So at this point, I start getting loud. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean? You don't know. Like, you don't know what I'm talking about. I was like, and then to have the audacity that I had my daughter. And when I came to visit your daughter, you had the nerve to be like, oh, it doesn't look like you had a baby. It looks like you're just fat. And like all these things that he would say in Spanish and like think that I wasn't listening and like whatever, just because whenever I would walk in the room, it was maybe like easy 10 years now that I just would walk in the room and be like, hi, hello. But I had told my mom already, like, Mom, I don't feel comfortable with him. Like, he's really weird. He makes me feel uncomfortable. And she's like, you don't have to say hello to him if you don't want to. But a big thing in the Spanish culture is if you don't say hello with a kiss on the cheek and a hug, you're being disrespectful. So I was like, I know, but, and she's like, fuck what they gotta say. She's like, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel comfortable. You don't have to say hello like that. And I was like, okay. So then I would go in, I would say hi to my cousins. I would literally go, hi, and then just keep it pushing. And like, and so that, so then we come back inside, and my cousin's like, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing. Like, he's in my face and he's lying and whatever. And then he stands right in front of me. And he's like, Deborah, calm down. And he puts his hand on me. And then I start freaking the fuck out. And I'm like, don't fucking touch me. Like, you're a pedophile. Like all, I start saying all these things. All of his daughters are in the kitchen while I'm screaming this. And then everyone starts staring at me. They're like, what are you talking about? So then I start like saying certain things. And I was like, and so much more. I was like, but I'm not going to say this right now. And I remember just every single like flashback of when I was younger, and he would like, they would have parties, and Peruvians love parties, and they had the room where the coats and everything were. I would always stay in that room, watch TV, and like he would come in and like be creepy and touch me, and yeah, and it was just those thoughts just flushed my body, and I just got so angry. And then they were like, you're drunk, you've been drinking. I'm like, so I'm making it up because I've been drinking, or am I just thinking of all the things he did because he's in my face? I was like, get the fuck away from me. I kept telling him, and then they were like, you have to respect him. I was like, y'all are bugging. I don't have to respect that man. He needs to get away from me this very second. So he ends up like walking away or whatever. And then I was like, I'm leaving. So I drove pretty much drunk, like tipsy-ish, from where they were to my house. And I got home and I talked to my daughter's father for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, crying. And because I had already told him when I had my daughter, we went there and I was like, he can't hold her. And he's like, why? And I was like, he's the guy. And I was like, the guy that you told me about? I was like, yeah. And I don't want him anywhere near Victoria at all, because I mean, I doubt that he's going to do that, but like, I don't know. And I don't know. So that being said, no. And then he never held her when she was little. I remember one time he asked to hold her. She must have been like 8 or 9 months. So she was a little big. She was born 22 inches, very long. Like, she was already a big baby. Yeah. So by the time she was like 8 or 9 months, she looked like she was a year and a half years old. Like, she was so huge. Right now, people think that she's 5 years old because she's so tall. She's like, and I'm not short. I'm 5'3", 5'4", and she's like up to here, like very much a tall child. So he grabbed her from someone else. And I was like, and I looked at my daughter's father. I was like, go get her. Because I didn't even want to go close to him. And then he went and grabbed her. And for her christening, which wasn't until she was 1, it wasn't the christening. It was actually for my baby shower, that his daughter was like, hey, so are you going to invite my dad? Like, he's going to feel really left out if you invite everyone, but you don't invite him. I was like, no, I'm not. And then she was like, oh, all right. And I was like, yeah. And then I didn't invite him. And then I didn't invite him to the christening. I didn't. And she's the godmother. And yeah, I was like, I can't. Like, I didn't know how to tell her or tell any of them, like, dude, your father used to do this to me. So when it came out like that, I haven't spoken really to them that much. It definitely made us not that close anymore, because obviously I just told y'all that your father is a pedophile. Mm-hmm. And that was that time. Then I had my mom, God bless her, something happened. My mom went to school and she needed someone to watch us. So she had one of her friends from back. She was like a close family friend, but from back when she lived in Peru. And she was like, she's the only person that can watch you tonight. She had a daughter. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So we ended up staying the night. And it was me and my sister. She put us in this room in the front of the house. And this man came in. And all I remember is him trying to get to my sister that was on the inside of the wall. So she was 5 at the time. I was 10. And I like had my, so this is my body. If you guys can't see me, but she was by the wall and my body was kind of on top of her. So when I saw that he was trying to pull her out of the bed, I basically laid my entire body weight on top of my sister. So then he sat on the other side of me and then he started touching me. And I know
while you're on top of your sister.
While I'm on top of my sister and he was trying to get to her. So he's there just doing that. And I was just, I had my eyes closed and I just remember tears, just tears rolling down. And then he stops and he leaves. And then the next day I didn't say anything to my mom. For like 3 months. We saw them at Water Country, like her, the man, and the daughter. And I peed myself. And my mom was like, Deborah, what's wrong? What happened? And then she brought me to the bathroom and I was like, Mom, this happened whatever day that you left this. And she was like, let's go. And then we went straight to the police station. From there, we ended up having to go to court and like all of that. Nothing ended up coming about it because we never went to the hospital or anything. But it was the fact that, and then the lady, she said that I was lying. She went to court with him and all these things. And I was like, Mom, he's probably doing it to her daughter. Like, she needs to like get him out of the house. That's
you
not
were 10.
Yeah,
you were 10, but you're lying. That's the part that blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. So with that, it was just really crazy. Then fast forward last year as well, my daughter, she must have been like 2. I went to my cousin's house and that lady was sitting right in the kitchen when I walked in, and I was just like, why is she here? Like, everyone knew what had happened to me. So I was like, why is she here? And they're like, my mom invited her. And then I asked my aunt, and I was like, I pull her to this house, like, why is she here? She's like, Deborah, she didn't have anything to do with it. And I was like, no, she just told me to my face that I was lying. And I had no reason to lie about a man that she's not even with anymore. She's like, she feels so guilty. I was like, I don't care. And then she kept, like, my daughter was walking at the time and she was like, oh, she's so cute. Come here, baby. And I was like, don't touch my daughter. And she knew, like, I don't care if you didn't do it. You were okay with it being done and you called me a liar. And like, nothing bugs me more than being called a liar when I know I'm not lying.
Yeah.
So that was my experience with like family friends. It's also happened at work. It's also happened with friends, brothers. It was just like, because of this soft voice and being, I don't know, I say I put blame on myself sometimes because I act like I'm too friendly. I mean, not that I act, I'm too friendly, I feel like sometimes, and people misinterpret it. So then it just fucks me up.
But the reality is, and I know, they have debates about at what point does no count. Mm-hmm. They say, well, it doesn't matter where you are, in the process, no is no. So, but that whole taking blame thing, like that, mm-hmm. that does not float with me at all, because at the end of the day, just as easily as you have the ability to say no, they have the ability to say, okay, she said no, let me stop, let me back away, or this is somebody who is off limits. Like, this is a child. Like, there's no reason that a child or a woman, any of that, you know, and that's why we talk about rape culture now, you know, because it's almost like any excuse to give someone to be sexually aggressive and violent towards someone else. Like, no, we're not dogs. We're not wild animals. If somebody is not welcoming your advances, or if somebody, you know, doesn't want, and the reason I'm going to say somebody is because let's stop acting like it doesn't happen to men. Stop acting like it is strictly a female situation. You know, because there's a whole, you know, well, how can a man be raped if, you know, obviously if his dick got hard. I'm just like, if the wind blows the wrong way, a man's dick is getting hard. So, but, and I've had guys who have told me, you know, they were like drunk at parties and passed out somewhere, and they have flashes of some chick giving him a blowjob or some chick riding his dick, you know? So it does happen to guys, but we have to do better. And like, we should not make a child, an adult, whatever, feel like they have to take the blame for it. Just because you're pretty, that does not give somebody the right to touch you in a way that you don't want. Just because, you know, you're a child and you can't say anything and nobody's going to believe you, you know, and I'm putting air quotes on that, it doesn't give somebody the right to A, touch a child, and then B, you back this grown man who is a friggin' sex offender to a child. So I'm not of the, you know, and I hope that's something that you let go of eventually, because no matter how friendly you are, like somebody not understanding someone not understanding that I don't want your advances, that's not for you to own. That's for them. It really is. And you know, but Louisiana is the same thing. Like growing up, and I actually, you know, it's kind of like jolting for my kids, because it's the same thing. We do have that part in common, that whenever you walk into a room, you say hello to everybody. You know, and the ones that are your immediate family members, you hug and kiss them. And there's a lot, and I don't know if it's because of the French culture, but they will kiss you straight on your mouth. So when my kids went home, it was like, I was like, no, you don't have to kiss anybody. No, you know, and for, you know, culture's sake, we have to stop making people feel like they don't own their bodies and what they are and are not comfortable with. Just because this is what everybody else is doing does not mean that this is what you have to do. And if you don't, and I feel like it allows, so, and maybe this is why, you know, we do experience these things within the Black and obviously Hispanic culture, because people are touchy-feely. So it's almost like a gateway for them to be able to do things that are inappropriate, because everybody's just going to overlook it as, oh, he's just hugging her. That's a normal thing, right? He's just kissing her and saying hello. That's a normal thing. Oh, she's just hugging him. That's a normal thing. When in reality, this child, their body is saying this is not okay because they are not okay with it. So allow them to not be okay, and allow them to not have to do these traditional things, because they're not comfortable with it. And I think that's why you know, probably have the same issue in the Hispanic culture that you have in the Black community, where it's like, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong for feeling weird like this because everybody else does it. So it has to be fine. It's just me. No, it's not you. Your senses are telling you that something is off, and allow your child to be able to trust their own senses, trust their own level of comfort. But for the sake of tradition, for the sake of customs, we keep putting our kids in that line of fire. And with my children, I flat out told them, I was like, no, if somebody goes to kiss you, you can give them your cheek. And if you don't even want that, you can back totally away. I will back you up. Like, no, don't kiss her. Don't kiss her. You know, don't hug her. So, but I haven't run into those issues. Like, people have been respectful of my children's space, you know, and they've read my children's body language. So they know, you know, I'm very touchy-feely with my children, very affectionate, but that's me, their mom, who, you know, like for them, it's like, no, you can't hug me like my mom does. So, but we need to give our kids that space to own their bodies and own it very early.
Yeah, that is for sure. That's one thing I absolutely love about my daughter right now is the fact that if she doesn't want to hug you, she's not about to hug you. And there is nobody that can tell her otherwise. Not her father, not her grandfather. She will not do it if she doesn't feel like she wants to do it. And I know it's a 3-year-old thing, and I hope it just sticks forever, that she's forever going to be that strong, because she's this child, she's only 3, but she is so strong. And I tell her every day, every single day, I'm amazing, I'm resilient, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm talented.
Yes.
And then the last thing I say is, and she goes, a big heart. So she knows that she has a big heart, but she's strong.
Yeah.
And you're amazing. You're resilient. You can get through anything. And
yes, affirm her. I love it.
And the fact that she knows it, when she falls sometimes, I'm like, what are you? I'm strong. What else? I'm resilient. And it just, she breaks my heart, or makes it, not even breaks it. She makes it so whole, makes it me feel like I'm not going to have any worries. But at the same time, it's those strong kids that people come after, because they're like, is she that strong though? Let me see if I can break her. Yeah, for sure. And it's so scary. So you mentioned before that you were married 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to, did you have a child with each one of those marriages?
No, I did not. So my first 2 husbands were, my first husband is the father of my son, and my second husband is the father of my daughters. My third husband we have no kids together. So when, I think I know where you're going, you're going to ask, like, what was that? Yeah. So he was actually already kind of, I don't want to say proactive, just about making sure that even he wasn't put into certain situations that would come off as he could potentially be some sort of child predator. So he was, he would never, he was never ever in their room. If he went to go and say goodnight, he would always go in and say goodnight with me. He was, they never changed their clothes around him. And some people would say, well, what's that saying about him? But the thing is that's, that's just how it was. It wasn't because he didn't trust himself. It wasn't because I didn't trust him. It's why even leave space for it when it's not necessary. So, he was just never, he was never ever that person, but he had a great relationship with the girls. He, taught them how to ride their bike. He taught them how to swim. He taught my youngest one how to read. A lot of times for fathers, like the daddy-daughter day stuff at school, whenever their dad wasn't available, he was there for it. So he was very much a father figure to them, but he also, understood. And I think even their biological dad, that my ex-husband, still allowed that same space. And even would have those conversations with them, like, if anybody touches you, and you don't like it, then you can just say something. So it was never ever an issue when it came to how the men, my second husband and my third husband, how they were around the kids. They were very respectful, and there was never ever a time where I felt like this is a little bit inappropriate, or I noticed my children start to, their body language change toward these people, or something looked off. And I would always pay attention. I always paid attention, because I felt like I know what I went through, and if anybody had been paying attention, they would have noticed that something was wrong. They would have noticed that something was off. So I've always paid attention to them. I've always had conversations with them to hopefully, allow them to understand that I don't care who it is. If it's your dad, if it's your stepdad, if it's your freaking teacher at school, if it's your soccer coach, gymnastics coach, whatever, tell me and trust me, I will deal with it. There's nothing that they can threaten you with that I will not be able to deal with. I assure you. So when it came to, like I said, my ex-husband, it was never anything that we worried about. And, even once our marriage was over, the girls, they still didn't, well, not just the girls, because it ended while my son was still home too, but they never gave, they still held him in high regard. They still didn't have any sort of like bad blood with him or anything like that. And it wasn't like, oh, he's gone, thank God, good riddance, you know. It was still, you know, they still had a respectful relationship with him.
Oh, I literally just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
With the girls, no, not with the girls, with your son, when you brought your second husband, how was that relation? How old was he? How was that relationship with him? And was he overprotective? Because boys are usually mama's boys. So how is that?
So my second relationship was, my second marriage was actually a pretty smooth transition, because he and I, my second husband and I, had actually been friends the whole time, and just friends. Like, I didn't even know that he had a thing for me until I was getting divorced. And like the rest of the guys in our group were like, he's been crazy about you since the day he met you. And I was like, what? Like, I've been around this guy for 3 years. I had no idea. Like, he never made a pass at me. And he told me, he was like, you know, if I know nothing else, you know, my mom told me, you know, you never ever talk to a married woman. And I was like, dude, like that was one of the things that I found attractive about him. I was like, you sat around and hung out with me and partied with me, you know, hung out with my family for 3 years. And I had no idea that you had a crush on me, but he did. And so he was always around. Like, my son knew who he was. It wasn't like it was just some random guy coming in from nowhere. But of course, eventually it was like, why is he sleeping over? Why is he still here? You know, but no, my son was, he was cool about it, because my second husband, he actually would, he was very engaged with him, you know, even when we were dating and we moved in together, he would go and pick him up from daycare. And you know, like, or like if I was at home and I needed to rest or whatever, he would take him and go to the park. Or if they, you know, it was time to go grocery shopping, he would take him with him. Like, he was a great, like, he picked up the torch, you know, because my son's dad, he missed out on an amazing kid growing up. But my second husband was very involved with him, and was very much an active participant in raising him. So my son never went through wait a minute, who's this? I lie. There was one incident. So he was in kindergarten at the time, and we were actually planning the wedding. And I get a phone call from his teacher. They're on a field trip. And she's like, Sydney just had a meltdown. I was like, what? Because this kid is like, he was always such a good kid. She's like, he's having a meltdown. He's hollering and screaming because we're getting ready to get on the bus, and he wanted to sit in the front. So I told him he had to be at the back of the line. And he said, I don't want to be last. I'm always last. But it's because we were doing all the wedding planning and everything. Mm-hmm. And so things shifted from him just being the total
center
focus.
Of attention.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my God, my child is losing his mind. So, you know, I started to integrate him into like us planning the wedding and everything, and started showing him things and asking him questions. So then he was more involved, and he wasn't just, you know, like some figure on the sidelines having to watch it happen. But oh my God. But other than that, there were no issues with him at all. It was just that one time he did not want to be last, even though he was last, so he could get the seat he wanted, which was at the front of the bus.
That's funny. Aww.
Yeah.
And okay, so with your third husband, how did you feel like you could trust him enough with your girls? When did, like, because it's so, I feel like with girls it's so different. I know that it can happen to boys and girls, but it's like with girls, it's like,
yeah. So, and you know, and I think, you know, I don't think your line of thinking is very far-fetched from the majority of society when it comes to sexual assault and molestation. You know, it's usually thought to be, you know, a man to a little girl. Mm-hmm. But with him, I guess the reason I didn't is because there was little things that he would do where he just did not like being in certain situations when it came to the potential vulnerability of a girl. And one example was whenever summertime would roll around and we're at the pool, and there would be these younger girls, but they were being very grown.
Mm-hmm.
He would leave from being at the pool. He didn't like it. He did not like to be around it. And he's like, because he said, as a man, he said, and as a father, and the fact that he would like always say as a man and as a father, even though biologically none of them were his.
Mm-hmm.
As a man and as a father, I don't like how these little girls carry themselves. It's disrespectful to themselves, and it's disrespectful to the people that are sitting around. So he was just always very big on, I guess,
respect.
Yeah,
Sure.
the females being respectful of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And he never ever, like I said, just he never gave me that feeling of any slight inappropriateness around the girls. Even whenever he would interact with me, like he was never, if they walk away, like if it's just a room full of grown-ups, trust and believe he had no problem putting his hands all over every part of my body.
Mm-hmm.
But he would never ever do that stuff in front of the kids. He would never like tongue me down in front of the kids. Yes, we were affectionate and we were passionate toward each other in front of them, but it was never in that overt, like, I'm about to rip your clothes off.
Over-sexualized.
Yeah, never. But like I said, but I know it was in him, but he could turn it off just like that anytime the kids were around. So he just never ever allowed, like I was never given the feeling that he didn't understand the boundaries of sex and sexuality whenever it came to children.
Okay. How long was it after that you guys were dating that you introduced them to the kids?
Oh, so that was actually really, really quick, because my third husband was actually my high school sweetheart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had actually, oh God, I want to say that was like maybe a couple of weeks into us like reconnecting, and he had come over and he ended up sleeping over, and and then he was just there because he was there all the time. And so everything just happened really, really quick.
Mm-hmm. How long after that you got married?
2 years.
Okay, that's not too quick.
Yeah, no, that part wasn't quick. So we lived together, and so technically we didn't live together, and so we had been together for like 6 months because he had another place, but he was always at my place, so it didn't even count. But yeah, so it was 2 years, and I was actually in Louisiana. Like, you remember when I told you I'd gone back down home to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. We got back together then, and I got a job offer for me to come back to Virginia. And I was like, this is divine intervention. I'm out. So I packed it, and he was like, well, if you're leaving, I'm coming too. And he quit his job, quit everything down there, and came on up here with me. And we were out here for like almost another year. And then he proposed to me, and then we got married, just quick, quiet, at church with like pastor and the kids and a couple of other people, and that was it.
And how long were you guys married?
So, girl, you about to start a whole other episode, because that so we were married to each other for 6 years, but we were married to each other for 7 years, but we were only physically in the presence of each other as husband and wife for a little bit over a month.
What?
Exactly. So I got to backtrack. The reason I was not allowed to be with my high school sweetheart was because he was a drug dealer. Oh. Yeah. So when we got married, so of course I left and went in the military. Girl, I'm telling you, this is gonna be a whole other segment. But so he was a drug dealer whenever we were in high school, but then I left and I went in the military. And his mom let him drop out of high school and everything to sell drugs.
Oh, wow.
I left, and
sounds like The Wire.
I mean, definitely not, because it's in freaking Southwest Louisiana. So no, this is not The Wire. But so whenever I was gone, he ended up getting busted, and his first I guess bid in prison, he did 10 years. 10 years. Of course, I'm not with him. I'm out, you know, working for Uncle Sam and getting married to other men and having babies. It's totally foreign to me. But this small little secret that I think a lot of people don't realize about that life is there's a strong probability, if a lot of times the drug dealer becomes the drug user, which I wasn't aware of any of that. I didn't see any of it. So of course, like I said, you know, our lives are good. We're out here, we move out here. He comes out here with me, and shortly after we get married, we had gone back to Louisiana because he had pending criminal charges, like pending charges that he had to go and deal with. So we went back there, and as soon as we walk into the courtroom, they're like, oh, we need him to go over to the bonds office. So we go there, and they take me and walk me across the street to the sheriff's office. And I was like, what am I doing? They put me in a room, and then they start asking me questions. And they're asking me questions about a murder. I told you, girl, it's a whole other segment.
My mouth is dropped. That is why I'm not talking. Holy shit.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there like, wait, what? Huh? Like, I'm like, nothing is adding up to me. Mm-hmm. And so that day, what was this? August the 4th, because we got married June 30th, and this is August the 4th.
Gosh.
Yeah, I see them do the perp walk with him from across the street, and there's all news cameras and everything.
No.
For murdering this older guy who was like a pizza delivery guy. You can Google it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so
so you held him down in prison for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, and this is so the reason I did that was because I felt like I didn't know what was true. I didn't know what was true. And I had never, I know this sounds really, really bad, but also, you know, at the age of 35, I had been married 3 times. Mm-hmm. I was always somebody's girlfriend. I was always somebody's wife. I had never been by myself. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, this isn't going to kill me. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm going to be his wife. I'm just here, you know, because here it is. I'm in Virginia, and he's down in Louisiana. That's 1,200 miles away. Mm-hmm. And we were waiting for him to, I said, and I was very like devout in church at that point, you know, well, prior to this happening. So I was like, when God says for me to let go, I'll let go. So I stayed faithful. All of my friends are just like, girl, shoot, as soon as they locked them handcuffs, I'd have been like, I'm single, ready to mingle. I was like, that just was not me. I stayed here. I raised my kids. And it was, the time, it was different. It was, you know, it was a different experience, but it wasn't until, so finally he went to court, and it took them 5.5, almost 6 years for them to get him to trial.
What?
Yeah, so he was locked up that whole time. And so he went to trial, and he got life. He got life, and I knew I was gonna let go. But I told him, I was like, hey, like, you know, we can still be friends. Like, I can still talk to you. But he couldn't detach his, you know, and I'm using air quotes on this, his love for me, because his love had become more so possessiveness. You know, like, yeah, like I would be in the grocery store, and he's like, I just heard a man in the background. I'm like, fool, do you not also hear the beeps from the cash register? Like, what? So it was almost like I started to get like, I was changing in front of my own kids. I was becoming anxious about stuff, and I was like sinking into myself because I was so worried about, what was I going to have to deal with him. So finally I was like, dude, look, I can't do this. I tried to continue to be a source of support, like mental and emotional. I said, but you are breaking me down. So cut bait, we're done. But, every now and in some sort of way in, a maximum security prison, he finds a way to get a cell phone and get on Instagram. I'll see him watching I'll see some,
so
yes.
funny.
He has a Facebook account now and Instagram. So I've reported him last time. I was like, hey, look, you need to stop it. Like, let me go on with my life. And I told him, I said, you have until tomorrow morning to deactivate this page, or I will call up there and I will let them know. And I told him, I was like, he's not allowed to call me anymore. He needs to stop trying to talk to me. And so they said, well, what about the kids? I said, the kids are biologically not his. He can't. I was like, no, he needs to let go. So they sent me the letter of him signing that he would not contact me. And then sure enough, like, a month ago, if that, I see people you may know. I'm like, what? I'm like, he's in prison. How?
Holy shit.
Yeah. So I told you, girl, I've lived a life.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Stories for days. I love it. For
days. But again, I'm happy. I'm at peace because none of this stuff is a secret. Like I said, if you want, you can Google it. But there's nothing to hide about it because those 7 years of being by myself, I became a freaking behemoth. I became so confident about myself. Like, I was already bad. I was already bad. Bad meaning, like, my arrogance about myself was already on a scale of 1 to 10. It was probably at like a 9.63.
And you are a badass biatch. So
yeah, exactly. Yes. And then like being by myself and navigating that whole emotional situation and just realizing like how much grit I have within myself to be devastated inside. Devastated. Because like I said, this was a dude I was with in high school. Like, we've known each other since children, and I can't even piece together this story. Like, and I have all of the documentation. I have all of the documentation that the courts have, and I'm reading everything, and it's still not registering in my mind. Like, how is this possible? I was married to this man. We had a whole life up here. We had a whole life, and none of it is making sense to me. So like I said, I'm dealing with trying to rationalize this and also allow this family to have the closure that they need, because I backed away from it because I was not going to allow the court system to use me and my standing as a citizen, my track record to play a role in this at all. Based on his merit and the evidence that you guys have. So I backed away from it, and I'm just watching I'm watching this battle happen, and the outcome of this battle could very well determine my own future, because had they said, okay, not guilty, would I still have my husband? I don't know. But I don't. So it's just, like I said, all of that happening and me still making it, me still being able to hold down my job, me still being able to raise a son to get a full scholarship to Howard University for physics,
you go, Sydney.
So like doing all of these things, I was like, shit, damn, I thought I was just pretty. Fucking awesome. Like, you can, I was like, there's something to be said about being by yourself and still being able to thrive, right? And even in the midst of all of the craziness and the naysayers and the onlookers and those who are waiting for everything to fall apart and fail. You wake up every day and you get your shit together and you do what you need to do, and you come home in the evenings and you cry in the shower and bawl your fucking brains out because you don't want your kids to see you crying and then them worry about you. But then you get it together and you come in the kitchen, make dinner, sit down and talk to them about school, go to their sports events, hang out with their friends, whatever it is. You still do all of these things. I'm just like why wasn't I single before? But again, I was somebody's girlfriend, and I was so focused on everybody else. I really didn't realize the magnitude of what I am as a woman, what I am as a mom, as a human being. So I have no regrets about that time. people are like, oh my God, but that was like your prime. I was like, shit, like that was not, maybe number wise, that might be my prime, but like what I gained during that time frame, I relish in it now. Like it is so much a part of who I am now, and recognizing just how great I am. So I feel like I needed that time by myself, to where I was married, so I couldn't date anybody else. I couldn't be anybody else's girlfriend. I couldn't have a distraction. But I also didn't have anybody else to worry about. I didn't have anybody else that defined me. It was just me. And I had all this time to learn who Tasha was. So but yeah, girl, 7 years. And so.
Well, you are much better than me, because I am not about to sit around and wait for no motherfucker for no damn 7 years. It would have been, I don't even know. I can't even say that, because never say never, but like.
Exactly, because I would have never, if somebody had said that to me, I'd have been like, ain't no way. Like, I'm about to waste all of this sitting around for 7 years? No. And then lo and behold, I'm like, okay, 1 year down, happy anniversary, babe. Well, 2 years, like my first anniversary, he was in prison.
Oh, jeez. How often did you go visit him?
So, and that's another thing, like that's 1,200 miles. And guess who would drive from Virginia overnight? I remember one time I left from here at around 5 p.m. and I got down to Louisiana at like 10 a.m. Yes, nonstop. That's what I would do.
Dedication.
Girl, craziness.
I used to bitch to my daughter's father and be like, I don't want to drive to New York, because like he's from New York. So but we lived in Boston, and I'm like, I don't like the drive. And that was only like 6 hours maybe. I can't, the drive from Boston to Florida, I drove maybe a total of 1 to 2 hours, maybe 2 hours. My mom drove the entire way, but we stopped 3 times. We like made
let's make it a road trip.
Yeah, like, I was just like, I cannot. I don't like being in a car. I don't like driving that long. I cannot imagine doing that.
See, but that's just it. I don't like being in a car. I hate it. So I want to hurry and get it over with. Yeah, I'm a whole different. I see it from the whole other side, right? I'm like, no, I don't want to be in this car. I don't want to sleep in hotels. Get on the road. Get down there and be done with it. And that's what I would do. Really, really good music.
Really good music. Do you drink coffee?
Sometimes, but not really.
So during that ride, you didn't drink coffee or Red Bull or like?
I was about to say I might have had Red Bull or something, but like I did that drive quite a few times though. Yeah.
I'm shook.
Yeah. She says I am shooketh. Yes.
I am. That's like literally what I am right now.
Yeah. No. I like I said, I've done that countless times, but I would not do that anymore ever again, because actually it was February 1st. I was working my tail off, and I was like, no, I just want to get home and get to sleep. And this is literally just from my job back to my house, and I went to sleep on the road.
Oh wow! Did you get in an accident?
Yep. I ran into the back of a construction vehicle.
Oh.
And it was like the concrete. It's like a concrete thing that they have on the back of these the traffic truck or whatever, and it has the yellow lines on it.
Yeah. Ran
straight into it.
Oh.
The airbag, like it was like my eyes opened up just as
the airbag was popping.
Just as I was getting ready to hit. So I hit my brakes, so it took away a little bit of it. So the airbags didn't come out, but I totaled my car.
Oh.
So that was a lesson. So I was like, yeah, I won't be doing those. If I can't even survive a trip, which is a 30-minute drive from my job to my house, we're not going to do that 1,200 mile trip. Like I'm not. And even my dad was like, you can never, ever do that again. He was like, he said, and which I had so many friends between my office and my house. I could have like slept over at their house, but I was like, I just want to go home. I miss my kids. And I almost didn't make it home to my kids.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Now you know.
Oh yeah,
You
lessons
live and you
learned.
learn. Yeah, you live and you learn. Everything is a lesson. If it's not a blessing, it's a lesson. So.
Oh, I feel like even if it's a blessing, it's still a lesson. Like
Hmm.
you gotta learn, and I think it was, it was an opportunity where I needed to learn. Like I really needed to learn to slow down, breathe. It's like it's okay, and the very thing you're trying to rush to get to, you almost destroyed.
Hmm.
So yeah, whatever. But yeah, girl, like I told you, girl, stories for days. Whatever topic you got.
Yes, I love that. So then that's great. Let's move on to the second segment, which is the weekly shenanigans.
Woohoo!
And this is where we discuss bullshit that we've seen on social media this week. It could be a story that we've seen or we heard. And of course, as we both know, the world we are living in right now, there are stories literally for days. For me this week, I mean, I've seen so many things, but the craziest thing I've seen so far was a man by the name of Bogdan Vechirko. He was booked on Sunday for driving a tanker truck into a crowd of the Minneapolis protesters. And on Tuesday, today, 2 days after, he was released. And it was the highway had been shut down at 5 p.m. that day. And they released him because they said that the driver likely saw the crowd and he panicked. He slammed his brakes after seeing a woman riding a bicycle and fell down. I was
Yeah,
just
no,
like, what? I seen this and I was like, I can't believe this shit. What do you mean? He panicked. If the road was closed, there should have been no reason for your big ass truck to be there.
exactly. You're a licensed truck driver, which means
Mm-hmm.
you have been trained beyond what the average driver has been trained. So how do you not know? Oh, this road is blocked off. Let me take a detour.
Mm-hmm.
Like how? Like weren't there even detour signs ahead of that
Mm-hmm.
saying like this
Yep.
road is blocked off? No, you decided that this is what you wanted to do. So but I don't think this is not the end of this.
No. I can't wait till they get him back in jail. Supposedly the crowd though, they dragged him out of the vehicle and they just started beating the shit out of him. He looks like he was fucked up in his mugshot, but like I mean, I don't know. I really
Yeah.
hope that it's true, but at the same time, it's like I feel really bad for all of those people that were hit, the
Yeah.
bicyclist and all this. They need to get him behind bars because this was no accident. This is
Oh,
not an accident.
no, it was definitely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So my craziness is actually in line, of course, because this is really like what's consuming uh, online information right now. This
Mm-hmm.
the the um, the murder of
George Floyd.
yeah, the murder of George Floyd in Minnesota. I was trying to remember where it was
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because everybody's protesting, and the world is on fire right now. But the argument that I've been having with a lot of people was whenever it came out that, of course, the officer Derek Chauvin was arrested, and then right after that, his wife went and filed for divorce, and
Worse.
everybody's like, "Oh, right on for her," and I was like, "No, fuck her."
Mm-mm.
I
It
was like,
took,
"So
you heard, since 2001, he had been, there have been cases, and I was like, it took you how long to
yeah, and what is blow? So there was so much around that story. I was like, everybody is sitting here saying, well, I don't blame her. I believe. I'm like, no, like this man didn't just wake up yesterday and decide to murder somebody. He
mm-hmm.
has 18 charges. So when did she decide in those 18 that, oh no, these are fine. Oh, but wait, now this one's bad. You know what? No, it's because everybody saw it. And the other thing that is so frustrating to me is a lot of women have been going, like whenever people comment about it, they're like, well, maybe he was being abusive. I'm like, let's stop giving her a pass until she says that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are we making excuses for her?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't say anything about him being abusive. As a matter of fact, in 2018, she was giving an interview and she was talking about how awesome of a man he is and how much of a softie he is outside of uniform. That was 2 years ago. So when the fuck did he become a killer?
Mm-hmm.
When? No, she knew who this man was. I can assure you. And that is one of the issues that I have with a lot of people. I'm like, most of the times people are showing the signs of who they really are. You know, whenever they make those little slick comments, or, you know, whenever they do certain little things, they're showing us who they are. We want to make excuses for it. This wasn't his first time doing it. Like, everybody saw it. He has an entire freaking rap sheet of closed cases against him, 18 to be specific. So this isn't anything new. So if we just keep brushing him under the rug, why does he have to stop? Yeah. He didn't have to stop, and George Floyd didn't have to die. He didn't. So that was the one that was like, that was the craziest thing to me, was everybody wanted to give his wife a pass because, like,
put her on the defense. She knew who she married.
She knew who she married, and she knew who she continued to stay married. So let's go back to me talking about my ex. Right now, did I know I married a potential murderer? No, but did I know that this man used to beat the shit out of people whenever he would get in fights? Yes. Did I know that he used to be a drug dealer and ran with a certain crowd of people? Yes. So I can't sit here and plead total ignorance to who I married. And it's the same situation with her. And no, he didn't beat me. That's not why I stuck by. I did it because that's what I wanted to do, because I loved him. Same thing with her. She wanted to overlook all of these things, all of these signs that said, your man is kind of nuts. And because either she loved him, she wanted his pension, I don't know. But either way, she chose to stay with him. And now all of a sudden she doesn't want to be with him. I'm not giving her a pass, because had you checked him on his stuff earlier, maybe George Floyd would still be here. Maybe the Native American guy that he shot would still be here. We don't know.
Oh man, I agree completely. I seen that and I was like, girl, you're now, because it's public, because there was a video, because people are coming for you, like, how can you be married to him? Now you want to divorce him? It's cool, but I'm not about to sit here and feel bad or give you props or none of that. Like, you don't deserve that. You should have been left him. He was garbage from the beginning. So
and I'm all for supporting women. I will stand for a female. I mean, I say female because I found out a while back that's offensive to people, but I will stand up for a woman in a minute, because I understand the struggles that we have to go through. But I'm also not going to sit here and give you a pass that I wouldn't be willing to give a guy. Because I'm not going to sit here and look at the dude and be like, oh, well, I feel bad for him. Like, no, fool, you knew you married a prostitute. Why are you shocked that she's sleeping with other dudes?
Right.
That's
you know what you got yourself into.
Exactly. Like, you decided you wanted to defy the odds and wanted to make a hoe a housewife, and it didn't work. So own that. The same thing with her. You knew this man was freaking crazy, but for whatever luxuries you got out of being with him, or because of the fact that you simply loved him the way that you did, don't get mad now because people sitting outside your house intercepting the pizza man. Don't get mad.
That was so crazy. Like, all the people, did you see all the police officers standing outside? Like, I was like, y'all are really defending a whole ass murderer just so the next day he's now convicted. How do y'all feel? Like, he did it. And you guys, they look absolutely nuts. I get it, because like people were coming for him, but no.
He did it. Yeah. And from the images, because I didn't watch the video. I'm not going to desensitize myself like that. I refuse to watch the video of somebody dying. Like I said, I know how it ends, but me seeing the picture of him with his hands in his pockets, that's enough. You were comfortable in that position.
He was so comfortable. He was so, and like, he looked like, because I looked at the picture too. I didn't watch the video. I've stopped watching the videos after the Philly Castillo, yeah. Orlando, yeah.
Philando Castillo.
Yep. He was the last video I seen. When I seen that video, I was just crying, and it took me a while. After that video, I would tell my daughter's father anytime he went anywhere, please be safe, please be careful. And before that, I would say it, but it was more so when he was driving, when he was with the baby in the car, because they don't give a shit. Nope. Who's with you.
It was obvious.
And it was after that video, it was really, I was just like, I have to stop watching these things because I'm having nightmares that he is dying.
I've never watched any of them.
Oh, good for you.
I can't because I don't know. For me, like that, like, you remember when World Star was big, right? When and I used to fight like crazy growing up, but
Too.
yeah, right. But like I also know like whenever I would be like when I would get into a really big fight, afterwards I would feel so terrible. I'm like, oh my God, like I almost just killed her. Like, oh my God, she's got two missing teeth now. Like I would feel so bad. So when World Star was big, I was like, I'm not watching this. So now whenever people start posting these videos up and everything, I refuse to press play. I'm not watching it because I know what that does to me, you know, inside at a raw state, in a very human place. And I never want to lose that sensitive side of me. I never want to be so desensitized to loss of human life that I can watch a video and watch somebody get beat to a pulp, or you know, gasp for air for their life, or flat out lose their life. I cannot watch that. I don't want to do it.
After knowing what the end result was with the George Floyd video, I was like, I'm not about to watch this. Yeah. But I saw the picture, and the fact that he was just staring at the camera like, yep, I'm here. This is happening. You're not going to
just
do
hanging out.
Yeah. Did you see the video of the woman that was recording the video? Like,
no.
A couple of days later, I was kind of annoyed with her because I get it. Like, you saw it happening, but sometimes, I don't know. It's obviously easier said than done, but how you can just stand there and record someone when you know that they are probably about to lose their life, and you don't just risk going to jail and just pushing him off, or like questioning something. Like, I don't know, I didn't watch the video, so I don't know if she's talking or anything, but a couple of days later she goes to the scene and they're recording her saying, I saw a man die here, and he's just crying and all that. And I was kind of annoyed at the video, and I was just like, why are you doing this? Like, if anything, people are going to ask you why you were recording and not doing something about it. Like, it was.
I know that's the question a lot of people ask is, you know, because it was for what, 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes, that you recorded this man dying. Like, at what point in that span of 9 minutes, like, why didn't something go off in your head? But you know what it is? Again, it's because we are desensitized to stuff. I firmly believe, like you said, you know, whatever, if we're put in a situation, you know, we don't necessarily know how we'll respond, but me knowing myself and being of sound mind right now, because of course, you know, once emotions come into play, who knows what you'll do. But I cannot imagine sitting there and watching somebody gasp for air and me not at least still like try and hold the camera and say, oh my God, like get off of him, like start backing into them or something, like create some sort of diversion to where they have to focus energy and effort on me, pull somebody else from out of the store or whatever and say they are killing him. You know,
there's always more of the people than there is of the police. So there was something, I feel like, that could have been done if everybody just joins forces and takes him. I know it's late now, but it's like there's something could have been done.
But as a society, we need to do better. And I think, you know, what overtakes it is the cognitive dissonance in that moment for a lot of people. They're watching and they're like, well, that's not me. Like, I'm not a criminal. You know, cops are dealing with him. They're dealing with him, but they are killing him. And you have the opportunity to step in. And a lot of times,
fight or flight that a lot of people are just like, a lot of people don't have it. A lot of people don't have that, let me step in and do something. They rather watch than be part of what's happening. I don't know. I'm very much, I speak up. I do things. I don't really know. Again, I don't know how I'd be in that situation, but I'm very much, I've gotten in arguments with police officers. I've said my fair share of shit because it's like, people think, oh, you're light skinned. I'm light skinned, but I'm still Hispanic. You think they don't think I'm illegal? You think that they don't, like, I've been stopped and frisked and all that stuff while being in high school. So yeah, my skin color might be light, but I'm still a minority. That does not change shit. And if they see me, I've always hung around Black people, Black girls, Black guys. That's just my crew has always, I was brought up in a predominantly very diverse, but I always was around Black people. So you think that when they see me, they're going to treat me any less different than they're going to treat somebody else? No, we're all equally the same. Just
brown.
Yeah, they're just darker, and then they're gonna see me and they're gonna be like, oh, well, she's a light skinned minority, so come here. It's not.
And the other issue that that comes in, that people feel like for me, they'll feel like I'm detached from it because they're like, well, you live in suburbia. It doesn't. Okay, I live in suburbia, but I still have a car. I drive into many different areas, and let's go ahead and face facts. My own son got stopped by the police in front of our own house.
Jesus.
And here my son was at the time, I want to say Sydney was 14 or 15. They had, like, he's sitting on the curb with a cruiser with the lights on, because I told my son to come outside and wait for me because I was just going to pass by because our house was right around the corner. I told him I was going to pass by and he could just get in the car. And so he's standing out there waiting for me. And the police officer is like basically telling him to wait there because, of course, my son doesn't have an ID on him. And he's like, well, this is my house. And he said, well, why are you out here? So here's my child getting harassed by and mind you, there's all sorts of white kids who just roam around in the neighborhood. My kid is literally standing outside of his own house and the police stop him. So I was like, let's not think for a moment that because I live in suburbia, that it doesn't happen.
If nothing else, you got it worse than if you lived in the hood, because living in suburbia, you always have a target on your back.
Because I'm the one, the one black lady and, the single black lady down, in the corner, in the cul-de-sac. I'm the one, if something goes wrong, heaven forbid my son be outside, because then it's like, well, what was he doing? Meanwhile, the kids who are on their skateboards who are going down, down the road, they're getting away and you're looking at my kid. So yes,
just because of the skin color. And it's like, when it's very clear who no offense, white folks that might be listening to this, but who the hell are the ones that do the mass shootings? 99% of the time.
I don't know if you remember the DC sniper. That is why it was such a huge thing, because they were looking for a white man. They were looking for a white man.
I just don't get it.
I was like, he just ruined our track record. Right. We don't do this.
Where's his mama?
I know, right? Who raised him? Right. Like, we don't do this kind of stuff. Like, we might go and like steal a car, but we don't do this. Stop it. But I mean, there's, and like I said, again, it's not to be separated or anything like that, but it's to recognize the reality. Like, this is what we're dealing with. Yes, our Black kids will be harassed a little bit harder than police officers. Why? I don't know, but that's just what it is. So let's own it and let's figure out, okay, how do we change that? How do we fix it to where, my kid isn't guilty just for standing outside of his own house? So,
speaking, because you have a son, how have you had those conversations? I'm sure you've had those conversations with him, and how has he dealt with it? He's 22 now.
So let's backtrack. So I've had conversations with my son, and my son was in denial. He was in denial because, and this was even with that incident happening, because the way I describe it is the area where we live in, I call it a bubble, because everybody holds hands and sings Kumbaya, and, you have, a Black person living in the gated community just as well as you'll have a white person, and everybody seems to get along and everything's great and wonderful. And so, of course, I'm talking to my son and I'm telling him about like some of the, racially charged situations that I endured growing up. And he's like, oh, that was in Louisiana. That was back in the 90s, blah, 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 blah. My son was totally defiant. Like, he just knew I was lying. And then Howard University happened. Then he's put into an environment where you have all of these Black kids who are coming from everywhere in the United States, and they are telling their stories. And he's like, and I hope this does not, I don't fucking care, whatever. Whenever I went to pick him up to hang out with him like I'm gonna say like maybe 6 months into him being at Howard, and there was some situation that was going on or whatever, just like nationally. I can't remember what it was, but I told him, I was like, I said, yeah, I'm sure it's a different feel with you being at Howard. He's like, yeah. He said, I realized I was a complete coon. Like my son called himself that because he was so delusional, and like all of the stuff that I would try to tell him, now he's having his peers, because now this isn't just Louisiana back in the 90s, because those were the stories that I was telling you. Now this is you getting the story from somebody who, you know, in 2000 and what was this? What, like 2018, 2016, with them talking about this incident happening right in New York. You have someone talking to you from Cali, telling you about some incidents that they've dealt with. You have somebody talking to you from Milwaukee, telling you about some incidents that they've had to deal with. So now it's not your old mom, which I'm not old, I'm only 20 years older than him, but whatever, telling you, you know, my war stories. It's your friends your peers telling you their reality. So you're welcome. I raised you in an environment where you felt that comfortable. So that one incident that happened, you felt that was an isolated thing, and that's not a big deal. No, this was all over the place. So he came to that realization, and now he is very active in DC in regards to because of course they're dealing with gentrification. So he's very active in that. He does a lot of charity work with the lower income and the homeless people out there. So he's gotten a lot more involved in it because he is not in this little nice, comfortable kumbaya bubble that he's grown up in. But the beauty of it is that his blindness has actually encouraged his sisters' awareness. They are a lot more aware. They recognize the beauty of the bubble that they get to be in, because you know, in which they deal with a little bit of it from, you know, kids at school, you know, making comments talking about, you know, we like white girls, you know, all black girls are ugly. And I'll let you see pictures. My daughters are freaking beautiful.
I mean, you're beautiful, so I can't imagine your daughter's not. So.
But and they're great girls. I mean, intelligent, compassionate, just really, really great young ladies. Like, I'm excited to see who they become as adults. But so they deal with stuff like that, but they are very aware of their blackness. They are very aware that though they have access to and kind of live a certain way where we are, that is not the story for everyone. It's not everybody's story. And my son was delusional. My son thought that his story was everybody's story. Maybe I made it look that good to where it's like, oh, this is how everybody lives. This is not how everybody lives. And his sisters have grown up to, you know, be, like I said, almost the polar opposite, and are very aware and very conscious of the differences. And, you know, they embrace and love the fact that they live a little bit more of a comfortable existence than what some people do in predominantly Black neighborhoods. But, you know, they get it. Their brother, he finally caught on, but it took him going to a Black university for him to see it.
Good though. At least he got it now, and he's going into his adulthood just being ready and going to be an amazing human being.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Now with the change happening, I feel like there is going to be such a shift after these riots and everything is over. People are like, what I'm hating about everything going on isn't that it's going on, not the looting, I don't care. You know why? Because all those things, violence and all of that, is what's going to cause the change.
Yeah.
If we continue just peaceful protesting, nothing comes from peacefulness. Nothing.
Well, we saw what happened. Kaepernick got, you know, picked on for 4 years. Him and anybody who emulated his actions were considered to be, you know, basically anti-American. And let me go on record, because I don't know how many military people you've had on here, but our job is not to defend a flag. Our job is to defend the Constitution of the United States of America and to protect it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. You know what's in the Constitution? Freedom of speech. You know, it's in the Constitution, the right to peacefully protest. So if anything, what he did validated the 9 years that I served. It validated the people going out and fighting wars on a consistent basis under the United States flag. But what we do not fight for is that flag. That flag was not a part of our oath. Mm-hmm. If you actually read the enlistment oath, it does not mention the flag. Though we respect our flag, our flag is held in very high regard, we are not fighting for the flag. We are fighting for our Constitution. And the Constitution is what gives him the right to peacefully take a knee. Now, if his employer has an issue with that because of him protesting on the job, they have every right to that, right? But as everyday citizens, for us to accuse this man of being anti-American, accusing him, because him protesting this way is saying that as an American, I have this right to do this. Mm-hmm. But the thing is it didn't matter because the protest was peaceful and they didn't like it. The protest is violent. They don't like it. Mm-hmm. So how are we supposed to protest? How do we bring about change?
They don't want change. So they rather nothing than anything.
Exactly.
So to me, it's like this. I'm glad this is happening.
It's really unfortunate.
Happy. It is totally unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the small businesses that might be affected. I don't feel bad for the big businesses because it's like you have insurance, you have money. This is all replaceable. Guess what? The lives of the future kids, the lives that were taken, those things are not replaceable.
Yeah, so this is what we don't want to be known for. We don't we don't want to be known as a country that says, you know, give me your tired, give me your huddled masses. Mm-hmm. And whenever they come here, whenever their future generations are legitimized Americans, you don't want to give them the same rights that the Constitution says that they should have as an equal person. Like, come on, like this is not what we do. This is not who we're supposed to be. So let's make it right. And unfortunately, it is taking violence to even get the attention that it needs. Because though I'm loving the fact that there's so many businesses and celebrities that are speaking up, where have y'all been? Where were y'all?
Well, you guys used your celebrity a long time ago.
A long
time
ago.
And make a difference. I know people hate Kim Kardashian and all that, but she's been trying for the past few years. She has been trying, and she's been being a voice when nobody else has. Tyler Perry, you came up with this studio and all this stuff, and you're giving a lot of opportunities to minorities, but it's like, man, you have a lot of power, a lot of say, and you could have used all of that power and say to make a difference, not only in the movie industry and in the TV industry. There are so many things. You should have been an advocate and doing so much more. And the fact that people hate Kim Kardashian and she's the one that's doing it, it's like, damn, y'all, like, that's kind of like crazy to me.
So I'm one of those people. I'm like, we really, like, this chick really like got this high off of a freaking sex tape, because I'm like, she really is not like, let me not say I'm a Kim Kardashian hater. I'm just kind of one of those people that's like, why? But I will say this much, and you have a lot of people who are involved in the legal field that's like, oh, but I did the work. Okay, you may have done the work, but the fact that she is who she is and she's bringing attention to things, it helps. And like, if she's gonna do anything, I'm gonna at least be proud that that's what she's doing, because she could kick back enjoying her lavish freaking life and not giving two shits about these wrongfully convicted people. She really could, but the reality is that that's not what she's doing. So I'm gonna at least give her props for saying, you know what, she could. There's no rule that says she has to do this. There's no rule that says, but at least she's being, at least she's taking what resources she has and the platform that she does have and shining even a fleck of light on the, I don't want to say the impartialness, because it's really not impartial, but the unbalanced scales of justice. She's shining a light on that. So I can't be mad about it at all. I just, I wish more celebrities, more people with a voice, more people with power had been speaking up a long time ago. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We can't dwell on the past. But what we have right now is a bunch of angry, raging people, and they're forcing people to pay attention. They're forcing people to be aware of what's happening, and not just be aware, but taking ownership in it, because this is your America that's getting destroyed. Yeah. So either you help fix it or we'll burn it down to the ground.
Yep. Yep. I'm here and I'm watching every second of it. I'm like, I'm gonna just sit here. I can't do anything because I'm pregnant and I have a baby, but I'm going to support and put as much out there as possible and use my platform. And if it's only 10 people see it, I don't care, as long as I'm speaking up. Because if you can't do much, the most you can do is speak and talk about it.
And I was having this conversation with my daughters. People need to understand that change, this war, basically a battle for change, really, because I think it's going to be constant. We're going to have a few more every so often, just to remind people, like, we are not giving up on this. There's a role to play in it, and of course, I still go back to my military mentality. Just because we have everybody fighting in the Middle East, it doesn't mean that we take all of our soldiers here from the United States and dump them in the Middle East. You still have to have some that are left behind. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody has a part to play. And just because you are not on the front lines protesting, just because you are not able to donate money, wherever it is that you have the capability to contribute, that is what you do. You weigh that within your own consciousness and you decide, am I doing the bare minimum, or am I truly doing all that I can? Am I doing the bare minimum that says, hey, I stand with you guys? Somebody referenced, a lot of these companies that are saying, hey, we stand, with the Black community, and we stand against, the police brutality and acts of violence toward the minority communities. Okay, but y'all also pull in billions of dollars from these same communities. So you can post up whatever it is that you want, but until you put in money, that's a marketing ploy. You're trying to hold on to your customers. Do you actually care about this situation, this issue, or do you care about holding on to your customers? And to me, if you have people out there holding up your banner and in the middle of these protests, even that, like put your money where your mouth is, put your business where your mouth is. So if you see people out on the front lines and they're giving water and giving aid to the protesters or whatever, and you're wearing your logo, I totally get that, because now you're out there representing your company, saying that we support you in this. But just because you put a thing on Instagram or you send out an email saying, hey, we get it, do you really?
Did you see how much Virgil donated for the protesters' bail? Virgil is the guy that is the designer Off-White.
Oh, yeah. No. How much?
$50. He sells belts for like $400. He sells jeans for like $1,200. He sells jackets for like $3,500. This man is worth a lot of money. He's a designer for Louis Vuitton, I'm pretty sure. And this man donated $50 and posted it. He didn't just donate it secretly. He donated it and posted it. And people have been coming for his neck. And then
they should.
You're worth millions. And you're telling me you're only going to donate $50? So people like celebrities and all sorts of people are coming for him. And then he did a post saying, I'm very Black. And he's like, I'm very Black. I'm very dark. And I mean dark. And I'm not this and I'm not that. And I was just like, okay, but is any of that the point? The point is you're rich and you donated $50 fucking dollars. I think you could have donated a little more than $50.
Okay, so I'm not worth a few $1 million, and I didn't just click a button to do something. I had a friend who was in New York, and she told me that they were getting ready to go protest, and because I'm here with my daughters and I'm not able to go and be supportive, I cash apped her $150 so she could go and get water and get some supplies and everything that they needed. And A, I didn't post that on anywhere to brag about it, like I done something. B, I'm not worth a freaking $1 million. I'm not worth, like, I can't see. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, I need your match the energy.
Yep.
Match the energy. Like, if you're really saying you're committed like that, let me see how committed you are. 50 freaking bucks. That's not even, you know, a night of drinking.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's literally, if you go out with you and another person, that's maybe an appetizer and a meal. And I don't even think you can get drinks. Like,
no.
you can get a soda each.
You can get lemon water.
Lemon water, and that's it. You can't get a dessert.
No.
So don't think about that. Yeah, I was like, damn, bro. Like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of money, but like, I know I would donate way more than that. Yeah. Just because.
That is. And then for him to repost it, like, that part is crazy to me.
Like, you're bragging about it. Like, it's
$50.
A big deal. Like,
$50 don't fill up most people's gas tanks. Well, it does now because gas is super cheap.
So cheap. I was like, wow, I haven't seen gas this cheap since I was like in middle school.
Yeah, it has been a while. It has been a long while, but I'm not complaining about it. I'll go for it.
I was telling my mom, I was like, we should just fill up like tanks and put them somewhere, and then like put them in the storage, and then slowly, whenever we need them and the gas goes up, then we'll take it from there.
I know,
She's
right?
Like,
I wish
right.
that was possible.
So let's go right on into the weekly check-in. And this is where we talk about a current event topic, but it could also be a show or a movie or social media or the news or a magazine that you thought was worth talking about. For me, it's gonna stay on what we've been talking about. And it was a meme that I saw, and it's not a white versus black, it's everyone versus the racist. And for me, that can't be any more true, because I've seen so many white people standing up and showing out, but I've also seen so many white people coming at other racist white people. And it's like so nice to see. I'm like, cool. Like, all of them aren't the same. And like, I don't have anything against white people, but it's like, I always feel some type of way because they do have this privilege. But then I've met people that are very kind and very everything, but like, you don't know if someone's really that until something like this happens, and then they actually start showing you like, nah, I'm here and I'm ready to fight and I'm ready to stand for everyone being equal and all that. So it was really interesting, because I know a lot of racist Hispanics, racist Asians, racist Arabs, and the problem has never been like the color, but the racist.
Yeah,
it's like the person itself and their beliefs and their character, and that's the issue. And I thought that was a really interesting meme. I was like, this is nice to talk about, especially with everything going on. I was like, this is very true.
Yeah, see, and you're talking about a comparison meme, and for me, I'm actually it's still within the same vein.
Mm-hmm.
So many people are trying to use Dr. King as justification for why these riots are wrong, these riots are bad. And it's like, all they show is the picture of them marching, but then they don't show the aftermath of people being hosed down with fire hoses, of being attacked with dogs. And then let's not forget, y'all murdered Dr. King.
I say, was he not shot, or like what? Like,
yeah, so I mean, if that's not the pinnacle of violence, I don't know what is. So let's stop. Like, it's so annoying watching everybody say, oh, well, Dr. King, even Dr. King himself quoted and said that sometimes violence is very necessary. So whenever people want to, constantly use him, to me, it's like, again, it's almost like they're diverting from the reality of what it is, just so they're deflecting, right? They don't want to deal with what it really is. So it's like, oh, well, Dr. King would never. But there's actually a quote of his from The Other America where it says, but it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. it would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without at the same time condemning the contingent intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard.
Yes.
Those are Dr. King's words, but yet everybody wants to use Dr. King as an example of why we should not be rioting when he's the one who says, I understand why riots exist, because it's the voice of the unheard. And for at least the last 4 years specifically, we can say that there was somebody that was trying to make people pay attention, to make them, address this issue, and they didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're hearing them.
Yep.
And they're burning America to the ground.
Mm-hmm. There's people that have been tagging him and apologizing and being like, sorry I didn't pay attention sooner, and sorry that I dismissed what you were saying. And it's like, sorry, you can say sorry now, but it's too late.
Too late.
Yeah, now you have to deal with what's happening, and just shut up and deal with it. Like, this will end when it ends, and guess what? When it ends, things will get better. No, I don't know if they'll get better, but shit will change.
Oh yeah, there's definitely, like you said, there's going to be a shift, and it's not going to happen overnight, and I think it's good for us to allow our kids to understand the responsibility that they have, because they're going to have to carry the torch. It's not going to go away overnight. But when it comes to Kaepernick, I'm seeing all of these people that are apologizing, and I'm like, what about his career that you guys screwed?
Yep.
What about, because granted, he might not have been the best of quarterbacks, but he still had an opportunity to get better, to do better, something. But you guys totally dragged everything about this man. So you know what? If you really want to apologize, put your money where your mouth is. Put your policy where your mouth is. Like, let's just stop giving these blanket apologies like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because your sorry is not changing what's happening. But your actions, your contributions, your active participation can change things. That's something we can accept right now.
Oh, poor Cap. I mean, not poor Cap. I bet you he's home now, and he's just like, yep. What'd I say?
Speaking of memes, somebody said, "If I Told You So" was a person, and it's a picture of him kneeling, like, kind of giving a look, and that's actually the meme says, "If I Told You So" was a person.
That's really funny.
He tried to tell us.
Yeah, he did 4 years ago. He said I'm kneeling because this is some bullshit, and everyone said stop playing football.
Yeah.
You're not American. Like, it's so silly. So silly.
You're a terrorist. Yes. Okay.
And now, oh man, I'm just glad that I know that at least for our kids' future sake, that the change will come, and maybe not for our kids, but our kids' kids, that they will be safe, and there will be justice, and there will be no more fear every time they leave their house, or fear every time they see a police officer, or any of that. So I'm grateful. I'm happy. Grateful. I don't know if it's the word for rioting, but like, I'm grateful for the protests. I'm grateful for
the voices
and the people that are speaking up, because this was so necessary. I'm glad for the white people, because the good white people that are coming out and are speaking out, because as much as this doesn't affect them, they don't have a reason to come out, and they have, and they're showing out, and that's pretty damn cool that they're doing it.
Well, I feel like the reason for them to come out is to show that you actually are a good human being. To show these people that you consider to be your friends, your coworkers, whatever, the people that you say you care about, show them you care. Because the voice of a white person in the midst of all of this is far louder than ours. So you come and stand with us. You come and protect us while we try and get stuff done, and shout for us since nobody's hearing us.
Well, let's get right into the last segment, which is the listener Q&A. And this is where I read listener letters, but I don't have any this week. So For the listeners, send in your questions or stories or anything that you'd like for me to read on the podcast to deb.talkk@gmail.com. Again, that's deb.talk with an extra K at the end at gmail.com. And I'll read it here on the pod. But in the meantime, do you have a question or a story or anything you'd like to tell me?
A question or a story? Do you want me to do the one that I just did, or do
Whatever you want?
I don't know. I don't know, because I feel like we talked about so much. Like,
I know we already touched on a lot.
We talked about a lot of stuff, but so there's not really any that are pressed. Like, there's nothing that's jumping out on the top of my head right now, honestly. Okay, that's so terrible.
No worries. We talked a lot beforehand. And
yes.
So yeah, we've been on for like 3 hours.
But I know there was one thing that we were talking about, and you said you wanted to know how do I do dating with having daughters?
Yes,
considering that topic. And for me, one of the things that I had actually said was I didn't want to date anybody seriously, and that's why the guy that I'm seeing now, he was, just a distraction all before, because I didn't want to take anybody seriously, because my daughters are in high school, and it's tough enough figuring yourself out as a young lady, let alone now you got to figure out mommy's boyfriend too, so I didn't want that. But then when my son left to go to college, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be by myself in this house. So I might need to start working on finding a partner. And so now I'm at that place to where I'm dating, and we're serious, but we don't want to get too serious, because I don't know if I'm ready to bring him around my daughters yet. I don't know if my daughters are ready to meet him yet. And it's a very orchestrated, like a very choreographed dance that I'm choreographing as I'm doing the dance.
I bet.
To try and make sure that I don't trip on my own toes. So, but also, like I said, it's not even really about me worrying about protecting their sexual innocence, because I would hope that any guy that I date, that I get to know, that I pay attention enough to know or see the signs of them having something that's unhealthy around my daughters. But it's really more so just, my kids are used to having me all to themselves. So that's gonna be, not gonna be, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, so I can definitely not imagine dating or like bringing a man around my girls. Like, I can't imagine it. I remember telling my daughter's father, I'm like, if you and I don't work out, I'm going to be single for a very long time, because either I'm going to be single for a long time, or they're never going to meet my girls. Because for me to get to trust someone enough with something so near and dear to me, it's just, my mom, she was such a good example. Oh, not such a good example, but her example to me was, she never brought any men to our house after her and my dad got divorced. She said that, like, now later on in life, she's like, I dated around and whatever, but you just never met them. She's like, I didn't work a certain day and you guys would be at school and I would see him then. And like, she told me about these relationships and I was like, what? And it was really interesting to know that, because I was like, wow, I had no idea, because she just never brought men to the house. And I was like, cool. Because like, after everything that happened to me, I was just like, I don't really feel comfortable with grown men. And now she's married again, and her husband now, I fucking love him. Like, he gives me all of the father vibes. My dad, he like was out of the picture by the time I was like 14. He was there, but wasn't. Like, that was the last time I saw him. And then I saw him again like 2 years ago when I had my daughter. But when I met him, I was just like, Mom, I'm so happy for you. He's just like so great, and he gives me all the father vibes, and he in no way, shape, or form, and I don't like it's weird and it's fucked up to say, and this is the racist in me. It's not racist, but it's like, I don't like Hispanic men because of the things that have happened to me.
Yeah.
And now anytime I'm around, I don't date Hispanic men. I don't look at them. It's not my, I can't.
Yeah, you're totally turned off to it.
Yeah, but I also don't date white men. It's again, it's a little racist in me, but it's just certain, because of the fact that I've grown around so many Black people, I've always just been into Black men. And it was just,
girl, I don't blame you, because so am I.
Yeah, my daughter's father, he's Bayesian, but he's Black, and I've just always, the way that they are, just like with the way they look at you, the way they are is just like nothing I've ever met in another guy. So yeah,
you ain't gotta tell me twice. And I mean, and I have dated other races, and specifically, like, I've dated white guys, but like there's always been the issue of my Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in some capacity or another, it came out, and even in one situation, this guy was like, as far as how I was treated, he was probably the best white guy. It was like he was, of all the guys I dated, the one who treated me the best was this white guy. But the problem was, he was oblivious to me being Black.
No way.
Yeah, so like whenever, when we would go out places and people would look at me crazy, or, you know, they would act up with me, he couldn't even see it. He, bless his heart, he was like, when I tell you, the sun rose and set in his mind with me. Everything was about me. But the kicker for me was, we were at a restaurant, and we were in the lobby area, like waiting, or like in the foyer area, waiting for our table to get called or whatever. It was just me and him. And we were actually in Pensacola, Florida. And there's this older couple that's just watching us, and he's like his hand is on my leg, and they're just watching us. And then he starts messing with my hair, and the woman just starts to give me this dirty look. And he looks at, because he sees me making eye contact with her.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me, and then he looks at her, and he just like, he starts making out with me like super hard. I was like, okay, you're not gonna help the situation. Like, what I needed you to do was like check them and make this stop.
Yeah,
like, not
like, what the fuck are you looking at?
Yeah, like, even if he had said, you want me to give you something to look at, and then done that, like, but so, and at the time I'd already had my son, who's his father. My first husband was Black, and so my son is Black. There's no, you know, mixed nothing. He's just a brown baby. And so I was like, this man will never ever be able to teach my son what it looks like to be a Black man in society. He will never be able to make, and obviously I couldn't either, because he went and was delusional because his life was so freaking good. But it's just, I realized, I was like, I can't have a life with this guy because he refuses to see. Like, when people make that statement of, oh, you know, I don't see color. No, I need you to see it.
Yeah.
I need you to see it.
You need to feel it. You need to hear it. You need to, all the feelings and emotions that you can possibly, if you want to deal with someone of color, of someone minority, you have to, because it's the reality of us. And if you can't see it, then there is no us. That's why I could never picture myself dating a white man, because it's like, you don't have any of the struggles that I would have, or like anyone minority would have.
But I will say, I know a few couples where, and it's usually the, no, I lied. So I have a friend, she's German, and her husband is Ghanaian, and she goes hard for him. She goes hard for Black people. Like, if I didn't know any better, you would swear she was Black. And I'm not talking about because, you know, she, you know, talks funny or anything like that, because she's very much a German chick. But the fervency that she fights for it that's how I know white people are capable of seeing it. It's just a matter of whether they want to or not. And I do have a couple of female friends or girlfriends who are Black and their husbands are white. Mm-hmm. And you come after his Nubian queen if you want to, he will go off on you. Like, they are very much into embracing the Blackness of their wives and elevating the Blackness of their wives and encouraging the Blackness of their kids. And it doesn't water down the Irishness of one of them. He knows he's Irish, you know, and he knows that his kid is part Irish as well. But he also knows that what the world sees whenever they see his son is, odds are he's a Black kid because he's super dark and he just has really, really nice hair. And that's it, you know. So and freckles, but because like he's actually dark with freckles. But so I know it's possible. I know it is, but for me, just like you, I have this thing in the back of my mind because of my history when it comes to white men, because that situation was actually a good one. I have far more negative ones from like my high school upbringing and those experiences that just keep me with that mentality of they will never ever fight for me the way that I need them to fight for me. They will never be able to cover me the way that I need them to cover me. And with the guy that I'm dating right now, you were talking about the date that we went on, and you were talking about, oh my God, that sounds so romantic. So romantic. But what I loved was, we know that the world is burning around us, right? And we didn't even have to talk about it. I didn't have to say anything to him about it. He didn't have to say anything to me about it. He knows how my heart is hurting. I know how his heart is hurting. I know how he's terrified for his son. Mm-hmm. He knows how I'm terrified for my kids. We don't have to even talk about it because we know. And I love that peaceful understanding, that quiet understanding, that look, you know, as soon as we see each other, we can just breathe. I don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to be a certain way. We can just breathe.
We are at peace within each other.
Exactly. And that's so when I say I love me some Black men, that is why I love them, because their struggle has been my struggle. Their story has been my story, and we don't have to repeat it to each other. We already know it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, and I can't wait to find love. Well, in like a few years. But
I was just about to say, no, we'll give it some years.
Yeah. No, I can wait. I can definitely wait. But
yeah. But you're excited for the time when it does happen.
Yeah. I'm excited to find me my chocolate Prince Charming.
Yes.
So please tell the people where they can find you again. Please let them know about your podcast and all that good stuff.
Yes, you can find me at TalkswithTashaPodcast on Instagram. You can find me at Tasha Talks on Twitter, and you can find me on Facebook under Talks with Tasha Podcast. Of course, if there's anybody who wants to shoot me an email, they can feel free to do so at talkswithtashapodcast@gmail.com. It's spelled just like it sounds, TASHA, because some people like to do it with an O, but it's talkswithtashapodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to give me a shout. Listen to whatever episode you want to. There's plenty of them out there. And of course, if there's any questions, reach out to me, leave comments, questions, concern. Like I said earlier, I am an open book. If there's anything that you want me to discuss, I'll gladly do it.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you again for being here. This has been such a great conversation. And
I thoroughly enjoyed it. You as well.
Thank you. So everyone, remember to subscribe and rate and review. And yeah, we started this podcast asking, what was life like overcoming sexual assault within your family? And as you can see, it wasn't easy, but it's possible. We fight through life every day and show the world that we are strong-ass women that can't be torn down. And right now we're living in such a crazy world, but we need to think of the bright side and all the things, the amazing things that are coming. And I just want everyone to remember that Black lives matter and love each other. And like I always say, keep an open mind and an open heart. Toodles.